to like tag and just do all these other things.
You were so excited. If I dude, there's a firmware update. Let's record. I was like, all right, that's a good excuse to just get riled up.
Yeah, see?
Okay, welcome back to part 2 of what makes us happy Asian males.
Oh yeah, part 2. If you guys are wondering, we are wearing the same clothes just to keep the continuity. We had to make sure the sunlight was in the same place so that it all looks like one consistent episode.
We timed this perfectly and met at the same exact time.
Got it. So I guess episode 9.5 then, right?
9.5.
9.5, what makes the happy Asian male so happy? And, okay, so just to kind of bring you up to speed, what I was saying was there's obviously a lot of factors into what makes you happy in life, but for one, or the one thing that really made a difference for me was realizing what things I had control over and what things I didn't have control over. So, you know, there was a lot of times where I would worry about, like, what decisions other people would make, you know, even if I had done everything I could to influence that decision, and it was just merely, like, I had to wait, like, another 2 or 3 days before the guy was going to decide whether he's going to purchase the software or not, you know. So let's just make
outcome dependence.
Yes, and I would just spend so much time, like, you know, the next 3 days, like, is this guy going to email me? You know, when is he going to contact me? And what I realized was, you know, like, if you focus on those things, like, that you have no control over, it really just, it could just really stress you out. So, what I try to do is, for myself, like, I have things that I control, like how I spend my time. You know, like, do I want to do a podcast today? Do I want to work? Do I want to spend it with my kids? These are all things that are within my capability of deciding. So if I'm going to stress out about something, then it should be about something that I have direct control over.
Right.
You know, and then the second part about this was to make sure that, you know, you don't just have preconceived limitations about yourself. You know, I
actually experience a real limit.
Correct.
Yes.
Correct. And I think a good example, people would always say, like, you know, like, if I fell off of this ladder, that would hurt my leg so much I couldn't even bear it anymore. You know? And the truth of the matter is, no one's ever felt pain that they couldn't bear, because we've all bared that pain, right?
Yeah, that's true.
So I was just using that example as a way of, like, when people, you know, just automatically say, I can't do this or I can't do that, it's like, well, maybe. You know,
let's find out.
Maybe you're short and you can't play basketball, but, you know, one of the best players is Isaiah Thomas, and he's 5'9". You know, so you might be.
Muggsy Bogues was 5'3", and he could dunk.
Correct. So you might be one of those outliers, and, you know, the flip side is, and kind of like why I have just a little bit of hesitation when I say that is, you know, if you obviously suck at something and you just don't have, like, the right ingredients to be good at it, you also have to know yourself well enough to be like, okay, well, I tried this thing.
I tried that.
Exactly. So, but I think the net of it is you go and try it. You know, and I always tell people it's super important to just have a good attitude. You know, when you go into it, I mean, I'm guilty of this sometimes, which is when my wife plans a vacation to a spot that I don't really know that well, like, I'll just kind of be like, just kind of go along for the ride, but after the vacation's over or halfway through, I'm always having, like, crazy amounts of fun, you know? So, yeah, to me, that's why it's just super important to, you know, whatever it is that you're dreaming about, that you want to do, like, go ahead and do it. Just do it. Figure out if you want to do it long term or not. But if it's something that you don't want to do long term, you know, guess what? You figure that part out too. You know, like, all of my failures in life, it all boils down to that. You know, I failed at so many things that I started realizing, like, I failed because I'm not interested, not because I'm not a capable person. So let's just find something interesting.
That's a good point. I'm going to riff off of what you just said, like, approaching something like, and you find out, oh, I just really don't like it, I can't continue because there's not enough passion for it. At least you tried that and you gave it a go. But there's some things that naturally attract us and we don't ever test our actual capabilities. I think that's why physical activity is still one of the best things to be involved in, because you can't fake it. You can't argue about it. There's a visible result.
Right.
Like in competition, like in even a ping pong match, there is still a winner. You know what I mean? Like, I think that's important because humans need to see.
Don't undermine ping pong.
Table tennis. My bad. I'm sorry. Table tennis. I mean, but have like taking part in something that you can say, hey, this is the result. I won or I lost.
Yeah. Yep.
You know, and having an attitude about that, and yeah, that helps, because sometimes you can say, oh yeah, I got a win there.
Yeah. No, cool. I like athletics and physical performance because it's like, you know, if you're trying to have a better attitude and you go to a class that teaches you how to be more confident and have a better attitude, and the teacher asks you, do you have a better attitude today or next week?
Yeah.
You know, you're kind of like, I think so, maybe, right? It's kind of like you can't measure attitude, but if you're like, well,
sense it. That people always sense a
true,
good attitude.
True. But in your context of what you were talking about, it's like if you make someone stronger or you make someone faster, you're like, well, there's empirical data that we could point to that absolutely
a time,
proves.
A weight, a physical measurement. Yes,
exactly. And I think that's why, you know, I really wanted to push Can An Athlete because I do feel that if someone can see a gain in something that uses a stopwatch or is measuring weight or is keeping score, then that's a very easy black and white way of them being able to realize, yes, this thing that I started is better for me, you know, versus, you know, like, what's a good example? Like, I feel like all the meditation classes I went to, like, it was hard for me to tell if I was improving because it just took so much time, and to be honest, like,
you took meditation classes?
Yeah, and the teacher could ask me, like, am I getting better? And, you know, he's just relying on me to tell him if it is helping me or not, right? Because I took meditation class because, well, I've always kind of picked up new skills rather quickly, except for meditation, you know? It's like the harder I tried, the worse I got at it, you know? So
that
I was
is
like,
the irony of meditation.
Yes. So I needed someone to kind of help me through that, but, you know, like, for me, it's like, I don't want to talk to someone and say, start a meditating practice right now, because I feel like for a lot of people that are working towards becoming a better version of themselves, there's other things that they could do that could give them much more like concrete evidence that it's helping or not helping. And then once they kind of build up that skill set, then incorporate that practice to really, I think, get deeper into your own head and understand like how these things are actually affecting you or not. But because it's such like a tough skill to pick up, I feel like I don't want to set an age for like meditation, but I honestly don't feel like people that are like, I don't know, under the age of 25, their lives are so complex to the point where it's super important. You know, they're still just like putting stuff on their plate.
Yes.
And then once you have so much on your plate and you want nothing on your plate, then you could appreciate nothing on your plate.
You have to have experienced enough life to benefit from things like transcendental meditation or like a silent Vipassana retreat. Like, you just have to collect a bunch of losses, and in fact, like, sometimes you got to lose so bad that it motivates you to do something. You know, like, I'll tell you why did I ever tell a story of why I got into weight training?
No.
Because when I was 14, I was in my friend's garage. Like, they're all, like, my friends had just gotten into the football team, so they were getting into weight training. They had some coaching, and I had nothing, and I was just like, okay. So no one spotted me, no one, like, taught me anything, and as I pulled it off, it went awry, and it fell onto my face.
Like, on your neck?
On my mouth.
Oh, wow.
And I was like, and I had braces at the time.
Oh, shit.
And my lips got stuck to my fucking braces. And,
okay.
And, like, I was so... nothing happened. My teeth didn't get crushed, but, like, my ego certainly got crushed so bad that I would only want to do gymnastics. Like, I was like, oh, weight training... I justify weight training not being something that I was interested in. I was totally interested in it. I was just so freaked the hell out by it that it took me another 10 years until I was 24 to actually get weight training lessons at a CrossFit gym.
That's so interesting. I think I told you about, like, when I was younger, I loved bodybuilding so much.
Oh, you did?
But I was, like, super skinny. So, like, at Safeway, I would only look at bodybuilding magazines if no one else was in the aisle, because I thought, like, why would they would always think, why would a skinny ass dude be looking at a bodybuilding magazine? So it was just funny to think, like, how insecure you make or how insecurity could just make up these things in your mind that it's like
they imprint it when you're young.
I've never looked at what someone else is looking at in the magazine aisle. You know, I'm just looking at my own magazine. It's like, why would anyone be even paying attention? But you know, I just wanted to tell that story because I mean, it's like I think there's a lot of people like us that, you know, I think intrinsically knew that they wanted to do something, but convinced themselves that they didn't.
We have this story around it, right, of why we can, and we don't question it. We just kind of leave that story as a placeholder instead of like, let's replace it with a new story.
Yeah.
Which is, it takes experience. You have to go try something and say, you know what? I think that's not a true story anymore. That takes a lot of balls and courage, or ovaries, whatever you want to call it. It takes a lot of like, I'm going to go do this.
I like that. A lot of ovaries. Balls are very sensitive.
They are very sensitive. Ovaries are where we all come from.
Yeah.
So that's where we come from.
Grow some ovaries, people.
Ovaries, grow them.
You know, it's...
So the stories that we're talking about that stopped us from being happy, we had to revisit those. And that can be painful sometimes, right?
Yeah.
Knowing the real reason for why we did something and saying it out loud.
Such a good analogy and segue, because, you know, when you first came over, I was telling you, like, you know, being sick really allowed me to just empathize with people with, like, low energy, or people that are lethargic, or people that have, like, no passion or willpower for something, because, you know, that's how I felt when I was sick. And if that's how people feel, like, you know, without being sick, you know, we have to be cognizant that that's going on, and ultimately, you know, like, I would love to just say, put on your jeans and work hard, and, you know, you'll get there. But, you know, obviously there's a lot of little hidden tricks that we all play with ourselves and with our minds that, you know, I really think procrastination is just another way of saying you play mind games with yourself, you know? Like, you justify things, right?
Yes.
Like, I will finish this on Friday because I have 4 more days, and I'd rather hang out with friends and then just cram on the... You know, you're always justifying and basically brainwashing. Or not, I don't know, almost hypnotizing yourself.
Okay, this is such a good point you're bringing up. Because, in our own culture, because... I think our ancestors who came over here to America had to do such hard manual labor. There was just kind of this push away from doing more manual labor. It's like, hey, get a good job where you don't have to break your back for a living.
Yeah.
And so that kind of pushes us into these mental capacity skills or jobs, like, you know, being a lawyer, using just your head to think. And working hard in Asian culture means, like, doing your studies, only dedicating time to head activities. And if you're just spending time there and you're not actually acknowledging your body and its necessity to move around and jump or run or walk, you're going to get clouded in this whole thing. And the head, the way it's designed, is to see dangers and limits. That's just how it's designed, in my opinion. And you're just going to start seeing, the limit. I only see the limit. That's not going to work out, you know. But your body sometimes just knows. It's like, I'm going to go for it, like when it starts to lunge for things. But if you're so disconnected from your body, you spend only time up here, you're going to rationalize and procrastinate and make up stories in your head. Because that's what I did for fucking years. I made up stories.
Yeah, dude.
That's what I did for sure.
Man. I mean, I couldn't even begin to tell you, like, I mean, I started this company when I was 35, I think. And ever since I was probably a teenager, I wanted to be a business owner, you know? And, you know, I think about all the different mind games I used to play with myself, like, only greedy people start companies.
Yeah, only people who are money hungry start companies.
Yeah, just all sorts of fucking excuses as to why I didn't start a business. And ultimately, I believe that a lot of my anger and frustration came from wanting to do something that I've thoroughly convinced myself I didn't want to do, just like your weightlifting, you know. And this is kind of why I love doing this show, is like these epiphanies that I come to. It's like, as I talk about these things that I haven't talked about for
in
such
the
a long
moment
time.
Right now, right?
Yeah, like I'm starting to realize like my own shit. So And you know, honestly, like, you know, like I said, on the surface, there's so many things about my life that look like just picture perfect, you know, like
Yes.
my wife is awesome, my kids are awesome, I live in a super safe neighborhood, I love smoking weed, and all I do is sell like weed stuff. And you know, the truth of it is, you know, my life is like everyone else's life, you know, like shit still happens, I still get super duper stressed out about stuff, and ultimately it's like I have to remind myself I'm doing like this thing that I love to do, but it also puts into perspective that, you know, to be happy, you have to be balanced. It can't always be positivity the whole time, which is what I was really trying to always be. Positive, positive, positive. And then it got to the point where, you know, the only thing like that would get me interested, it would have to be something I've never seen before. It had to be like told in a way that I've never heard before. And it just started like really escalating. Like, you know, someone, you know, after my one wheel, someone would literally have to come over with like a hoverboard or something, and then I'd be like, that's cool.
Like from Back to the Future?
Yeah. So what I realized was, it's not, like, being happy isn't about just, like, avoiding negative stuff in your life. Being happy is really, like, experiencing, like, those negative portions so that you can contextualize it against the positive portions and truly be appreciative of, you know, your life.
Yes,
you know,
100%.
Yeah,
and also your ability to endure those things rises if you find things that activities and people in your life that are worth it. Your ability to handle all the shit that comes with it increases too.
dude. Exactly. It's
you know what
like
I mean?
lifting weights is a perfect analogy. It's like, you know, you gotta think like in life, like, I can't handle any more stress. But if the stress is like done in a way where it's like incremental,
Just enough. Yep.
dude,
Just enough.
like you, in a weird way, okay, this is gonna sound extremely cocky, but pretty much any problem that almost anyone comes to me with, my initial reaction is, that's a fucking tiny problem. You know, it's just tiny. You know,
Sure.
and
Yeah.
you know, I feel like it's because this company has kind of like just beat my stress threshold like
Yes.
so high.
Yes, you've been
And
pounding it into the red zone for a long time now.
yeah, and it was done slowly, you know, and this is why I feel like I was able to handle it. If I went from like my regular life to all of a sudden all of this stress, then I don't think I would have been able to handle it. But because I started the company off slowly, and we experienced like, you know, a 3-person company pain point, then a 5-person company pain point, then a 10-person company pain point. It was like all incremental. So like it was like lifting weights. It wasn't like someone put, you know, 3 plates on each side and was like, do this. You know, it's like, hey, do 1 plate on each side, do your 135s. When you get a little bit stronger, we'll put on 2 10s on the side, and we'll slowly get up to 315. And, you know, I feel like stress is very much the same way, where if done correctly, you will be able to increase your threshold for how you can handle it. And ultimately, I mean, I always think like when I'm super stressed out, like my cognitive abilities kind of go away. Like I just
Yes.
I'm like I can't explain myself. I'm like okay, I'll tell this story. This is actually a pretty good story. So check out my hand right here. I was riding my one wheel.
It's so sexy. Look at that. Look at that meaty chunk of missing flesh.
So and I fell off of it, and when I fell, like I felt like I was actually gonna pass out. Like the lights were dimming. I called my wife real quick. I was like, "Hey, this is where I'm at. I might pass out, but don't come and get me. Like, if I don't call in 30 minutes, just come and get me." You know, that was like my little thing to her. But
that's crazy.
you know, but now that I experienced that, I feel like the next time I'm about to pass out, like now I have like some experience to go back to, which is, all right, I knew I could get to my phone.
Yeah.
I don't need to panic as much as last time. You know, I still have a little bit of time to be like, you know, I have my cognitive abilities still.
Yeah.
And it was just, it was kind of like an interesting learning experience, and I felt like I leveled up a little bit there. But back to my main point, which was, you know, just kind of being able to, like, once your stress thresholds get higher and higher, and you're able to deal with more without it interfering with your cognitive abilities, then I believe that's when, you know, like when you see like these high intense debates on TV, and one dude's just like cool as a cucumber, and the other person's like all like frazzled. It's like I'm like, oh well, this guy's dealt with really high stress situations before. This is just another one that he's performing in front of, and here's a person that maybe has stronger arguments, but physiologically isn't used to that type of pressure.
Physiologically used to, and that, oh man, that's important you bring that up, because there is the physical reaction to your heart thumping when you're about to do something new or challenging. And you know, like when we have a stress event, there are ways that we can kind of like go back to being safe. Like maybe you have to breathe, or maybe you need to take a walk and be alone, or maybe you need someone to say, hey, it's okay. Knowing that about your own self, like I think that's where it comes back to intro and extroversion. Like it's not whether you're shy or outgoing, it's do you need to be by yourself when you're managing stress or in stressful situations, or do you need people to be around when you're in stressful situations? How do you react? What's your temperament? How do you react to a social environment?
Yeah.
Is it better for you to retreat and be by yourself to heal, or is it better for you to be around people for yourself to heal?
Yeah.
You know, and
that's an interesting way to look at it.
That actually comes from a book called Squat Every Day by Matt Perryman, and he talks about the myth of being able to only work out 2 to 3 times a week. But he's saying that our ability to handle stress in increments, our ability to recover from it also rises too. So you can keep pounding yourself eventually, like day after day after day, but that is built up.
Yeah.
You know, and it starts out where, you know, one stress event for like 1 or 2 workouts a week is going to shock your body for a couple days. You're not going to want to go back to it. But if you incrementally add just a little bit each time, you're going to be able to handle and increase your ability to practice it.
Yeah.
And you're not going to get damaged. You're going to be cool as a cucumber under what other people would say, like, oh my God, I can't handle that. And I think it's physiological. We are still creatures of the body. We need to handle physical stress.
So what happens, like, I mean, obviously, you know, as you get older, your body deteriorates a little. Like, is that something, like, when an athlete's past their peak, could still improve on? Or do you have to be careful with that kind of methodology of lifting weights?
You know, it's very interesting, because if you want to compete in the Olympics and be like the perfect specimen, somewhere between 18 to 27 years for a male, or 20 to 30 for a female. Yeah, but the most of us can begin weight training at any time, because the reps and sets are like dosages of milligrams on medicine. That's the whole point of it. It's to look at it as like medicine. You can dose it improperly and use time as the constraints to control dosage. So when a trainer doesn't understand how many reps and sets work for a person, I know this is kind of a tangent, but this is my job, is to deal physical stress in the right amount so that elicits a positive response in a few days from a person. That's my job. I literally get paid hundreds of dollars a week to do that by people, because I'm an expert at it, but only because I've done it on myself and other people.
Thousands of dollars. Don't get it twisted, guys.
Oh, sorry, yeah. But that's, I wish I was like, but you have to have, like, someone has to be ready for that. Like, a lot of times they think, oh, there's not going to be a psychological stress to it. It's going to be, you're going to get moody, you're going to be hungry, you're going to deal with it the way a teenager would. You're going to just be like, Rah!
Yeah, you know, that's a really good, you know, like, comparison or analogy. And you kind of, I think you explained it to me before we started recording about how these physiological changes from working out, it's very similar to the physiological changes of going through puberty and the moodiness, the anxiety.
That's real.
Yeah, and I mean, it's almost interesting. I mean, I've been working on this hypothesis of, like, do you remember what a solo flex is? Are you old enough to remember solo flex?
I remember a Bowflex, but not
okay.
solo
So solo flex was before Bowflex.
Oh, okay.
And it was a similar type machine, and they said their tagline was, "It's like a work of art, just like your body," or something to that extent, you know. And they really kind of made this connection of like machine to like organic body, and I really feel like I really feel like that there's something to that, in that like, I think hormones are almost like code, you know?
For sure.
And, you know, it's like, if you want to make Brandon happy, release the serotonin hormone. If you want to make him mad, release the cortisol hormone. You know, and this kind of goes back to that whole simulation theory that we were talking about like, you know, if we are in a simulation, you know, right now, if we want things to behave differently in a video game, we add code to it, right? So if we want humans to behave a certain way, well, what's the easiest way? You mess with their hormone levels, right?
Yes, sir.
Like when you give them antidepressants, it essentially, okay, I'm not a doctor here. I don't even want to go into how I think it works, but based on what I understood, it basically suppresses like the lows and the highs. So you're kind of like a zombie, right?
Yes.
So in a weird way, I'm like, that's like it's like a Band-Aid fix for the code. Instead of putting in good code, you're just like, all right, well, I'll just limit this code from achieving this greatness and achieving this lowness. And, you know, and that's why when you talk about like the physiological changes that happen to people, it just always makes me think about like my theory of like the human machine, and the brain being the computer and the code being the hormones and stuff in our body.
Let me tell you something pretty cool. The closer you are in weightlifting, they're talking about full body lifts like the squat, deadlift, and the press. And the closer you are to your 100%, what they call the 1 rep max, which you can only do for 1 rep maximum if you're skilled, the higher the serotonin response is by your muscle contraction. So you're basically using mechanical leverage to create hormone responses. And they measure this. This is like the art of strength training, is how high can you get off of weightlifting without crashing so low that you can't do it the next day. Soreness and all this stuff is a weightlifting hangover. It's like if someone can only handle 2 shots of alcohol, but their trainer gives them 5 shots of alcohol exercise, which is the norm. You just like, and you never want to come back to it. But if you have just the right amount each day, it's like taking a glass of wine, and you're like,
so how sore do you want to be? I mean, I'm definitely one of those guys that was like, if I'm not super sore the next day, I'm like, oh, I think I was dogging it yesterday.
So soreness is actually your body's way of asking, okay, do you want this? You did squats and presses and you went balls to the wall. Next day, have an exercise margarita or a Bloody Mary. Do a little bit of the same thing, but not at the same intensity, because your body's still dealing with like all the damage you did it.
Yeah.
So you just do a little bit, and then that's how you physically progress. Is the soreness, and that's the beat yourself down model. Yes, it works, but you have to titrate it. You can do an initial like beat the crap out of yourself, or you can do a little bit every day. And it's like smoking weed a little bit. If every day, you can't just take a dab your first time smoking weed. You got to take a little bit titration. You talk about this.
Yeah, absolutely.
Same thing, because you're getting a physiological response from the marijuana, the THC, the receptors, serotonin, dopamine, all this stuff, adrenaline. We have to manage those. That's what we're doing.
All right, so I'll play timekeeper. We're coming up on 30 minutes for the end of this episode. So as we always like to do when we end the episodes, we like to give a tip or two to the listeners. I actually didn't have my tip pre-thought, but as we were speaking, something came to me, and so if you'll let me go first, I would love to share my tip. So my tip on how to be happy is you can't look at all of these things as individual things. They're all kind of synergistically and working together. Like Brandon mentioned, Chinese parents really like to focus on above the neck, like really intellectual, mental things. Other folks, may just focus on, becoming the healthiest version of themselves. Some other people, and I really think a spiritual practice is really important here. For some other people, maybe not, but if you just work on the mental and the physical side of things, I think that that you'll make a lot more progress than if you just kind of tackle these things individually. And then my second tip is just, don't be disappointed. Like, this stuff doesn't happen overnight. I'm 40 years old. It took me 40 years to finally just figure, like, I've accumulated enough information to share with people. And the last thing is, just try to keep a student's mentality. Don't become a know-it-all. Don't be that guy that's like, you're wrong, and I'll tell you why. Just always be open to hearing other people's new ideas, and And you know, if all ideas were invented already, you know, we definitely wouldn't have had that vaporizer. We wouldn't have these new like kind of like workout programs that aren't just based on like how heavy you could lift, but you know, your technique, the way you're actually moving your body, you know, taking into consideration how your body feels the next day, and you know, all of that. So those are my rambling tips. I should have smoked some weed. I probably just stick to one tip, but my brain's going super duper fast right now. So what about you, Brandon?
My 2 tips are: 1, build smart muscles so that you can deal with the stress of trying new things, like the beating of your heart. You know how to deal with that. You know, when you're trying something new, the adrenaline that comes with trying something new. And the second thing to write off of that is to look at how, like, if you want to be happy, build some muscles and get social skills. That has been the key to a lot of happiness, and also connecting with people who make me happy.
Yeah.
If I was just doing this all alone, that wouldn't help. Building muscle is no good if chicks aren't checking you out and admiring it, or you're just admiring yourself. Fine, but you know, when other people enjoy it and you have a nice attitude about it, then you're a pleasure to be around. So,
and I just want to add an addendum to that, because you know, I really want to make sure that we eliminate all excuses for people, which is whether you're an introvert or an extrovert, you need fucking social skills. That's just it, you know. And there's been tons of studies. I'm not going to point to any, but if you guys are interested, just Google primates and social skills. Like, you'll see that every single primate, which humans are, they need social connections. You cannot get through life without social connections. So don't convince yourself you're one of those people that just doesn't need anybody else, and that you don't want to be outgoing, and you don't want to put yourself in these scary situations, because you're fucking lying to yourself. You're bullshitting. You need these connections with people. Like, without these connections, dude, I've tried to do like podcasts by myself. It's friggin' boring, dude. I could talk for a full hour, but you know, I don't come to these understandings because I don't have like someone like Brandon that's like, you know, taking my idea, expanding upon it, and like creating something new. So, you know, my last advice is, you know, just get out of your comfort zone. Don't make any more excuses about like why you're not going to do anything. You know, it's like I told Gordon that one time he was hemming and hawing about posting something. Don't edit it anymore. This is how you feel. This is what you typed. Put it out there. You know, like trying to come up with like the perfect thing. You'll just become an 80-year-old person and regret your life. You know. And okay, I'll get off my soapbox for now, but you know, it's just
we want people to succeed. We need to, and sometimes we do need to be a little bit more stern too. We can't always be like, it's just like at some point you just got to be like, fuck it.
yeah, and I'm gonna accept some responsibility for like the way the media portrays Asian males, you know. So now I'm speaking up, you know. I'm talking about it. I'm not internalizing this stuff. I'm putting it out there for people to judge, and hopefully it helps some people. And if it does, you know, that would make me feel so much better. And even if it doesn't, you know, at least Brandon and I know we tried. And you know, like we were saying, like once we try, then we could go to bed at night, you know, feeling good that we put in the good old college effort, and we know that this is something we like or we don't like. But this is obviously something we like to do, so I appreciate everyone watching. You got any last words to send these people off?
Nope.
All right, so
stay tuned for
BrandonSchen.com. Shen is spelled Chien. VapeExhale.com. VAPExhale.com. Smoke some weed. Actually, sorry. Vape some weed. Take some dabs. Then go train with Brandon. We're going to have a really good time. If you guys are ever in the San Francisco Bay Area, that's where we're at as well. So we'll get an email address and something where people could send us. But we do have a Facebook page.
Happy Asian Males.
Yeah. And I had no idea Going Ham was going hard as a motherfucker.
I just learned that the other day, too.
Apparently, it's been around for a really long time.
It's a Jay-Z and Kanye song, apparently. But anyways, I didn't know that.
Yeah. So we're hard-ass motherfuckers and happy Asian males. So thank you very much for watching. Look out for episode 10. We'll come back soon.
See you guys.
That was cool.